All right. So, basic trade model, macro 101, micro 101. I actually hit it both. So this is Tom and Jen on the island in micro. In macro, I hit it with Japan and the United States and cars and food. So nothing new here. But I did find an error in your book that would really throw you if you didn't. It threw me for a while. I had to figure out what their mistake was. So I got a slight modification to make that we'll work through today. But this is one of the figures in your book. And so some of the key things to remember is that this is labor productivity in terms of output per hour of labor. So it's not that we're having necessarily this and this, but it's this or this. So it's the output per labor is 2 bread, or that same person could be doing 6 shirts. And then over here it's just a 1 for 1. Then leads to our calculation of the opportunity cost, is that if one worker can do 2 or 6, then we can do our equation goggle there of 2 bread equals 6 shirts. I want the cost of a bread. Divide by 2, divide by 2, we get 3 shirts. And so I like to think of it as that. That'll be also helpful when we start thinking about prices and cost. Okay. Now, time to get our hands dirty. Any questions on the setup, first of all? So you got this, opportunity cost. Write these numbers down in your notebook if you haven't. I would take some notes on this because we're going to add on to this and quickly get more complex than we've done in any other class, including international, by the way, or we won't do this particular aspect in international when we get to it. But we got the same starting spot. So you got your labor productivity, and I might even copy down, maybe make my own little 4 square here. So we got the north and the south, and we've got the bread and shirts, and they can do 2 bread per labor and 6 shirts per labor. Or the south's got 1 bread per labor and 1 shirt per labor. So there's a quick thing of our labor productivities in a little matrix form. And so then we've got the north, we've got the 1 bread is equal to 3 shirts, or 1 shirt is equal to 1/3 of a bread. 2 ways to look at the opportunity cost. And in the south, we've just got the 1 bread equals 1 shirt, or 1 shirt is equal to 1 bread. Think of it either way. All right. Here's where your textbook went wrong. So if you have your book out, you might want to note it. Nowhere in the book that I could find do they talk about the starting place. So they also don't use this word autarky, but it's a common word for no trade. So without trade, you've got 2 people that don't trade with each other. That's their kind of starting place called autarky. And so you have to make this assumption to make the rest of the numbers work for what the book goes on with. And they don't say this. So we're going to give the South an endowment of 4 hours of labor. So they have 4 people. We might think about the population being bigger in the South. It should have been laid out. I'm going to try to send a note to the author of the book because they're on the 8th edition. I imagine they've been burning this for a long time. I can't imagine it didn't get caught. Unless I'm overlooking something, but I'm not seeing it there. They say that the starting place, and then they go into that next table with some things. So you need this to set that up. All right. If they've got 2 hours of labor in the north, let's assume, again, that they're going to spend an hour doing each. And without trade, they're going to split their 4 hours into 2 to bread, 2 to shirts for the south. And then let's assume that the terms of trade are 4 shirts for 2 loaves of bread. 4 shirts for 2 bread. What are the gains from trade in terms of shirts for each country? So close your books if you got them open. You've already maybe looked at some things, but I want you to I want you to graph this out, which is not in the book. So I want you to graph the production possibilities frontier for each country using this data and show graphically the gains from trade in terms of shirts for the north and the south. Yep, I want it in terms of shirts. So when you do this, you want to start with 2 graphs, 2 production possibilities frontiers.
It doesn't matter which is on the y and x-axis.
No, but let's go ahead and make that uniform. What would you like where, Chelsea? Since you brought it up.
I put shirts on the X.
I did too. I put shirts on the x-axis.
On the X? Okay, fine. So put bread on, just so we're all consistent, bread on vertical, shirts on the horizontal.
So we got north on one and south on the other, though, correct?
Yeah. Yep, so 2 different production possibilities.
You said the north has 2 units and the south has 4?
I'll rewrite that.
Yeah, I like that.
Wait.
What's your question? I'll walk around and help you guys get started.
4 shirts, 4 bread shirts for the south.
Nope. I think what I had down was, oh, you're talking about for just the country itself or the terms for trade? Terms for trade are 4 shirts equal 2 bread.
No, the country itself, though, they have 4 units, right? You said they have 4 units of labor.
In the south,
Yeah.
right? So they're going to split them, 2 going to bread, 2 going to shirts.
So we're not doing.
2 hours to
okay.
bread, 2 hours to shirts. Remember, their productivities are 1 bread per unit of labor,
But then, like, you have to double.
or 1 per hour.
I feel like that, I thought that was in terms of specialization. Because what it looks like is the north, if you have 2 units, if you specialize in bread, you get 2. If you specialize in shirts, you get 6. In the south, if you have 2 units of labor, if you specialize in bread, you get 2.
The north has 2 hours of labor. They're going to put 1 hour into bread production and 1 hour into
So
short
they're not
production.
specializing, like.
Right. This is autarky.
But for the production possibilities frontier, we show.
All of them. Yeah, you
show,
need
like,
to
if they
do your thing.
specialize.
Yeah, this is to construct the production possibilities frontier, you need to include the starting place plus all other possibilities using our labor productivity. And again, our endowment of labor So north labor hours equals
I got it.
2,
Okay.
and the south labor hours equals 4. So they have double the endowment.
So just
Where's your numbers?
Well, it's in 2 now.
Well, I mean, where's your numbers for these endpoints? Is it, okay, you got them marked. Okay.
cross it out.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So when you think about specialization possibility, we're throwing all of our resources at the production of one good. And that's going to tag your endpoint, your vertical and horizontal intercept. If you throw all of your resources into the production of one good. That's your endpoints. Okay. Yeah, pencil might be good. Mechanical pencils are, I always had a, I still have my eraser that brings back fond memories of my time in graduate school. I had a mechanical pencil and a eraser and used a lot of both. How come you're getting all curvy? How'd you do that?
Oh, I was looking at
Okay. Why is it not that? Huh?
I don't know if it is, but it's because as you get rid of, like, the slope is constant.
Yeah, so we have kind of a constant productivity. There's no changes, constant returns to labor along all production possibilities. What do you got? Okay, so if this is your north graph, right?
Right.
So the north has how many hours total?
2.
And if it throws all of those hours at the production of bread, what is the most they could have? And you got to use kind of both data, because remember that little square over there had labor productivity. So how productive is the north in bread? You guys can talk to each other, by the way. I don't mind if you work on it together.
They get 2 per labor hour, so
Yes.
4.
Right. Yep. So, yep, if I throw every hour of labor at the north at bread production, we could have 4. Yep, so that's your endpoint 4. Go ahead and write a 4. Try to make your spacing with this kind of even. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Interesting.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think it helps you get through some of this by having spacing for starters. Chelsea?
I just can't figure out, like, anytime I try to do trade, my graph is like third worst off. I'm not sure that I'm.
Okay.
So I have a question.
Yep.
It's about that. So
Well, I want to get everybody to the point first, so let's get everybody here. So on the north, we've got how many hours of labor? 2. If I throw every body at bread production, how many loaves of bread could be made in the north? 4. So that endpoint is 4, Cadence. So, do you see that? So 1, 2, 3, that is one production possibility.
can we do the trade and the production simultaneously right here? So if they trade all 4 of those 4
No, I don't want to jump to trade yet. We got to identify what's possible first. So I want to take some baby steps here because this is important. Now, if you draw the lines evenly spaced, like I'm requesting you to do, what's true about this point, the autarky point, this endpoint, and this endpoint? Colby?
They're the same slope.
They're all in a line. It's the same slope. And that's an important fundamental concept that is a huge abstraction from reality, but it's an assumption of the model that we have to deal with. So it looks weird. The way Chelsea drew it is with a curve. That's what we expect it to look like in reality because some resources are better suited to the production of one good or the other. Here we've got constant returns to labor. And so in the north we've got 2 bread. Let's see, this is my bread axis, right?
Maybe 12.
2 bread and 6.
Maybe 12.
Oh. Oh,
Maybe
yeah,
4
yeah,
and
yeah.
12, right?
Yeah, we're double this. So that's 2 and 12, right? So we could have 12, and then our 6 and our 2 are here, right? So if you draw it carefully, all of those points will be in a line. John? Oh, okay. Everybody with me on that endpoint? So we're throwing all 2 hours of labor at shirt production, we get 12. So we got this endpoint, and we can be somewhere in the middle. So if you remember back, those of you who had the principles class, I just kind of called this point A, the autarkic point. I didn't call it that in class, but that's kind of our starting place. So without trade, we're going to have the north at point A. In the south, if I throw all bodies at shirt production, how many can I have? 4. Right? I got 4 hours of labor. I throw them all into shirts. I can have 4. If I throw them all into bread, I can have 4. Right? So I can do 1 per person, 1 per hour of both goods. They're equally productive in that regard. They're kind of perfect substitutes in production. And so if I draw real carefully my line, I've got a production possibilities that looks like this. I've called this, by assumption, their autarkic point. Otherwise, there's nothing real special about that. They could be anywhere along that curve. They could be at any production point they want to be, given our assumptions on productivity. Okay, so the law of diminishing returns and different levels in the interaction, the production function, all of that leads to the production possibilities really being bowed out in reality. So it would be kind of this bowed out look. But we're keeping the model simple. All right, so Michael, you've been chomping at the bit to get to trade. Before we do that, I want to think about what the possibilities are for trade prices. I gave you 1, but let's think about what the possibilities are. So, comparative advantage told us that the north is going to specialize in shirts. Why? Opportunity cost is low. So start using that interchangeably. Whoever's got the lowest opportunity cost has the comparative advantage. And then we learned by looking at the opportunity cost that indeed, relatively speaking, it's easier for the South in terms of cost. They only give up 1 shirt. They're better at bread, relatively speaking. So we're going to move production points, following Adam Smith's advice and David Ricardo, to full specialization, where the South is going to be making all of our bread. So their point B is going to be there. And the South, their point B is going to be here at 12. Let's start to get a little color. Let's see. So are we in the north or the south in Kansas? I usually like to make one country the foreign country. It makes it a little bit easier, but we're we're in the north, I guess. We're kind of vertical. You go to Missouri, you're in the south, right? It kind of.
6:30.
It was always easier when I taught in Minnesota and in Iowa than the north was our domestic countries. All right, so let's call the south the foreign country. And so we'll just put a little S star by their stuff, a little asterisk, just to kind of remind ourselves that when we see variables like that, we're talking about the south's number of shirts versus the north's number of shirts. Just kind of an easy thing to do. So the little star denotes the foreign country. The foreigner, whatever. All right. Back to the price that we're going to negotiate. What prices work for the seller of, let's start with shirts.
Anything below 3.
Anything below 3. Okay. So one way to think about this is if I give up one of these shirts that I made, how many would I get myself? A third. So what do I need to get from a trading partner if I sell that? More than a third, right? Does that make sense? So this is what I can do myself. So if I can get a little more than a third, if I can get 1 or 2 or anything greater than a third, I'm going to be made better off than what I could do myself. All right, so that's kind of important. And if we come over to the south, if they give up one of their 4 loaves of bread, what do they need to get when they sell to make themselves better off? Greater than 1, right? If they got just 1, they could do it themselves. Why am I going to trade if I get just 1? I got to get something more than 1. And that's what sets the stage then for the terms. So let's write down what we got from that. So what will be the price range for post-trade? What is the, I didn't word that the best here. What will be the price range? So we know that the price of shirts needs to be greater than a third. So the price of shirt needs to be greater than a third of a bread. And we know that the price of bread needs to be at least what? 1 shirt.
But that
Okay.
has to be less than, the price of a shirt has to be less than.
Right, so now we got to go to the other side of the equation. So that's half of the market, right? I've kind of dealt with the sellers of the 2 goods. Now what about on the buying side? So if you're a buyer of bread, I'm sorry, let's say a buyer of shirts, what's the most that you'd be willing to pay if you're a southerner? If you're buying a shirt from some yokel in a different place, what is the most that you'd be willing to pay? 1, right? Because again, you can do it yourself. So you're not going to play 2 and help them out, but if you can pick it up for 75 cents, if you're used to paying $1 and now you can pick it up for 75 cents, we might have a deal. So the price of a shirt for the South needs to be less than 1 bread. Otherwise, they'll do it themselves. How about the bread buyer?
Has to be less than 3.
Less than 3. Because again, they'll do it themselves. So if we're sitting anywhere, can kind of go back to anywhere along here. If they were at point A, if they give up a bread, how many are they going to get? How many shirts are they going to get? If the North gives up 1 bread, how many shirts are they going to get?
Oh, for themselves.
Yeah, for themselves, just doing it internally, 3, right? So they have to give up, likewise, 3 shirts to get a bread. So if they can pay less than 3 shirts, we got ourselves a market. And so that's our market that's born. We have 2 parties that can be made better off as long as the price falls within this range for each one. And you can see what anchors the range is exactly what we did here. We're going to fall between a shirt and 3 shirts, and a third of a bread and 1 bread. Right? So it's going to fall in between the bounds of the opportunity cost that we had calculated. All right, so is this a possibility? Why?
That's what the price of a shirt is. Half of a bread.
Okay, good. So I kind of put it up here in absolute terms so that we could work through it on a per unit basis. The price of 1 shirt is a half of a bread, right? Or, so according to these terms of trade, the price of a shirt is equal to a half of a bread. Or, the flip side, if we think about it in terms of bread, 1 bread is 2. Are these okay over here? Yeah. All right. So how do they, go ahead, Michael.
I'm just curious, is there ever going to be, like, is there a way that we can solve for an equilibrium price out of those?
Not with the information given. So we need to have preferences. In fact, there's a lot of unobservable things that we would need. Negotiation skills. I mean, the laundry list is long on what we would need to do it. But we can do it. We're economists. We can assume anything. We can keep layering on enough things so that we can solve it. But with the information here, this is the best we can do, is that, hey, price is going to be somewhere between here. Just for fun of it, let's say it's this, right? Let's say that we get to here. So that's where this assumption for the terms of trade comes in. All right. So gains from trade in terms of shirts. 2 for each. So graphically, what you want to do is do what? And figure out your other thing, right? So I was looking for the gain from trade in terms of shirts. So I want to trade my shirts until I get back to the amount of bread I had without trade. In the north, I used to be eating 2 loaves of bread. So let's just trade enough shirts to get back to that level of bread. So that level of bread is at 2. So for the north, to get to the question, so let's say to calculate the gain, for the north, we're going to buy 2 bread. We're going to buy 2 loaves of bread, right? We're going to get back up to where we were without any trade. What's the price of bread?
2 shirts.
All right, so the price of bread is 2 shirts. So what am I going to pay with? 2 bread runs me 2 shirts for every bread is the price. Price times quantity. I want to buy 2 bread. The price is 2 shirts per bread. And so I get 2 times 2 is 4. The B's cancel. This will come in handy sometimes when we do different notation with prices. So I always set it up this way so I can go the B's cancel and I'm left with 4 shirts. So I'm going to buy 2 bread using 4 shirts, which leaves me how many shirts? This is where it can get a little tricky. That's why I wanted to show you guys the graph of this. 10?
If you buy 2 shirts, that leaves you
I'm buying 2 bread,
Bread. So you have 8 shirts.
leaving 8 shirts. Chelsea.
I was doing
This ends
fine.
up being a little bit of a mind bender. That's why I wanna
I was buying the wrong number.
yeah. So if I am buying 2 shirts, what am I gonna pay with? 4 shirts. I started with 12 shirts, so I'm gonna be left with 8. So I'm gonna 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm gonna get not 1 or 2, which is what, well, actually that's a little of a half. I'm going to get 2 out of it. And there's the magic of the market. Getting into, I'll use green so that it's the money here. All of a sudden, point C becomes a consumption possibility. Acting all by myself, I can only be here, right? So now my consumption possibilities are greater than my production possibilities. That's pretty awesome. That's what trade gives us. We don't have to like the other group or the other person. We just have to trade with them. We got it. We're in some ways taking advantage of them. That we're kind of mutual taking advantage of each other, I guess, would be the better way to think about it. But we're going to get up to 2 now and get to point C, and we can be anywhere along this trade line in theory. So this is the consumption possibilities frontier, the CPF. Our production possibilities were down here. What was the slope of the production possibilities for the north? What was the slope equal to? Nope, not 3. How much? Negative what? 1/3, yes. I thought you said negative 1. I was like, what? Okay. Negative 1/3. What's the slope of the consumption possibilities? We have 2 points here, by the way, point C and point B. You could tell me the slope. What is that slope? Negative 1/2. Down 2, rise over run, down 2 over 4, negative 1/2. What's that equal to? The price of shirts. So one of those double checks that you can do when you do graphically is that the opportunity cost of whatever you're measuring on the horizontal axis is equal to the slope of the production possibilities frontier, and vice versa. But now, just as important is that the slope of the consumption possibilities is equal to the terms of trade. And so our consumption possibilities lie along this green line. Okay. How about the southern here? How about the southerners? Show the gain rate. Oh wait, I don't finish just writing it out here. So after trade, post-trade in the north, we are at this point C, 2 bread and 8 shirts. 2 bread and 8 shirts, and therefore we have a gain of 2 shirts. We started off at point A with 6, and now we have this gain of 2. All right, back to the southerners. We're going to get them back to bread, back to the same level of bread they had before, which means they're going to sell off 2 of their bread. What are they going to get for their bread? What are they going to get? They're going to get 2 shirts. They're going to sell off 2 of them. They're going to get 4, right? So they're going to sell off 2, 1, 2. They're not going to get 1, 2. They're going to get 1, 2, 3, 4. And so their consumption possibilities follow that line. What's the slope of their consumption possibilities frontier? What's the slope of their CPF? 1/2. Same as these. It's the same thing, right? We're trading with each other. So that's an important thing to pick up from this. They look weird. They look different, and sometimes we have the scales different. But remember, that's the international price, if you will, if we're into kind of a country example. But in the city example, within our nation, we're going to have equalizing of prices that way too. So our consumption possibility slope is a -1/2 using our rise over run. The slope of the production possibilities frontier for the South was equal to -1. All right, and so we've got the gain from trade. We started with 2 and 2. Now we have 2 and 4. We have a gain from trade of 2 shirts. On your own, what's the gain from trade in terms of bread? What's the gain from trade in terms of bread? For both. Why don't you take a couple minutes and calculate that. What is the gain from trade in terms of bread? There's some quicker ways to do it, and there's a little bit longer way. Both of them aren't terribly quick. I think you guys can knock this out in a couple minutes. I'll help you out here. Graphically, we're looking for this point D and this point D. As soon as you get an answer, let me know. One? One for which one?
Both.
For both. You have that too?
No, I have 1 for the South.
1 for the South, 2 for the North.
Oh, wait, no, 2 for the North.
Yeah.
And you got 2 for the North as well?
Right.
Okay. Everybody get a chance to try to noodle it? So what'd you get? Let's do your 2 here. What did you do to get 2? What are you selling? You're selling shirts. How many? 6. And how much are you getting for your 6 shirts? How much bread are you getting for your 6 shirts? Not on the international market.
Oh, I didn't.
3 bread. You
Yeah.
gave 1, mine's
Okay. So you guys started using the 1/3 or something, or what'd you do?
My graph.
Yeah, I know. It's easy. That's why I want to have you catch these mistakes
I
now.
had it the right spot.
You had what?
I had my dot at the right spot. I
Oh, you
just
had your
didn't-
dot at the right
I just
spot.
meant, like,
Yeah, sometimes like mine's not going to look too pretty either here, right? Because you kind of like, oh, it looks about like that. Unless you really sit there with graph paper and do it, you might get the wrong answer. So if I give up 6 shirts on the world market, I'm going to get 1/2 of a bread for each of them. So I'm only getting 3. So I give up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I get 1, 2, 3. So point D, with the help of a little upward drift here, point D is actually at 3. But is my gain 3 bread? No, my gain is 1 bread. Because I started at point A, I'm going to point D. Is everybody okay with that? Everybody seen that? And then same thing here. If we're going to this point, we're going to give up a couple of our bread, and we're going, oops, I'm sorry, I went to the wrong one. D, that was our, I didn't put this on here, did I? This was our point C. to get to point D, we're going to buy 2 shirts. Each shirt runs us a half of a bread. We're going to give up 1. Down 1, over 2. We get to point D. I had a little bit of a drift problem here too. And so the gain is just 1. Now there's an easier way to think about this, although it's sometimes helpful to work through it. What's that? What do you mean the price?
Like, comparatively, you gain an extra loaf of bread for the 2 shirts. Like the original shirt game, you gain 2 shirts, so it would be logical to reason that you would gain only 1 bread.
If you did your math right here, maybe is what you're saying. If you did your math right here, and what was our gain in terms of shirts? 2. So what would our gain be in terms of bread? We just go here. 2 times a half is 1. Right? So it goes back and forth. All we're doing is traveling along the consumption possibilities frontier. So if you have the gain expressed in one good, you can kind of immediately flip over to the other good. If our gain from trade is 1 bread, which is what point D says, we got 1 bread, well, that's equivalent to 2 shirts. 1 bread is equal to 2 shirts. Okay? So you can kind of think about your gain from trade that way and go back and forth with them. Okay. So that is all review from principles of macro. Now let's add a little spatial to it. One bread, 2 shirts. The gain from trade is 2 shirts. In terms of shirt, it's 2 shirts for both countries. In terms of bread, under those terms of trade, it's 1 bread for each country. Each country picks up a bread. So if you didn't quite get that, make sure you review it and get back to me with a question. Here is what's in your book, which is now correct given my assumption on 4 hours for the South and 2 hours for the North. Otherwise, this is wrong if you started to do 1 and 2. So they just kind of have this little summary. We specialize in bread. We pick up 2 bread. We lose a shirt. And we calculate the net gain from trade. So it's a different way of looking at it. That's in the book. You guys can look at. If trading takes time, what is the max amount of time each can afford to do in trading? So, in the South, a bread costs me an hour, right? 1 bread, 1 hour. A shirt costs me an hour. 1 shirt, 1 hour. Now, instead of having a costless trade, what if we have some time it takes to make a deal rather than being self-sufficient, which makes sense, right? I mean, if you have to actually engage in trade, there might be negotiations. We might need to ship one to the other. We have to kind of dick around with the trading thing, right? So now we're going to add that into our model. What's the max amount of time each can afford to do in trading, starting from our terms of trade where we left off? So 1 bread equals 2 shirts. How does this time element factor in?
Would the time that the South would be able to give equal 2 hours while the North can give, would it be 20 minutes for 2 shirts?
Yes, you got the right idea there. I wish I had more board space. I got to do my protest here. Let me just, all I'm trying to do is get to this. Well, yeah, internally the opportunity cost, that's right. So I have to go through that whole thing just to pull this little thing up here again. If you're in the South and you've struck a deal at 2, sorry, where am I down here? 2 shirts, right? We're in this range of 2. The most you're going to go is 3, right? So that's the max you're willing to pay. So if travel time runs a shirt and a half, screw it, I'm not trading, right? Let's see what we're adding in. The element of having this travel time is going to change the dimensions here in the equation. All right, so this is how it shakes out. You're right with your 20 minutes. For the north, it was a third of a shirt. So then the most we could give up would be 20 minutes, a fraction of an hour would be the most that we could do. As long as it's less than 20 minutes, we're okay. We'll still have a gain from trade that's greater than 0 as long as it's less than 20 minutes. Now down south, it's a little different. They can afford a little more transaction costs. But of course, we need both parties to agree to whatever it is anyway. So that's going to bring in our travel time, or trading time.
Good question.
Yeah.
This is also something that may not be determinable, but would the cost of living in the South assumed to be, like, would that be assumed lower than the North?
No, I mean, it can be, yes. I mean, we could get going that direction, but we're not with this model right now.
Okay.
But we are going to bring in travel time to get the good, to actually the distance that we're willing to do. We're going to modify that. In other words, where you live, if you're close to the factory or away from the factory, we're going to allow that to be variable. So you can choose where you want to live, and if you buy a shirt and you live far away, it's going to cost you more to get it. So that's what we're building up to. So in the absence of scale economies, households will trade directly with each other. So in the absence of scale economies in trade, households will trade directly with each other. What we're trying to get here is a point where it's beneficial to have FedEx or UPS to actually specialize in the trading aspect. If there's scale economies in trade, then it'll be beneficial to have a specialist that helps facilitate that trade. And this will start kind of the formation of the city. So if there are scale economies in exchange, then a person doing it by themselves could be made better off if it's a little cheaper. So now we've established what it might cost for them in terms of how much bread or how much shirts they'll have to give up. Now if we can have a specialist come in, we might be able to start to create these trading cities. So trade workers live close to firms and bid up the land prices. The higher price of land increases density, generating a trading city. And so there might be benefits that we live close to a river, and now we can start getting close to the bread trade and the shirt trade if we're on an avenue. Okay, so a couple examples historically of locating on canals and steamships. The whole Great Lakes region was bringing stuff all the way over to Manhattan. I mean, there's some awesome pictures that hopefully we'll get to at some point. That guy Ed Glazer that I showed, one of the awesome economists that I showed you, he gave this presentation once where instead of showing cities, he showed trade routes of rivers. And this was like a historical paper that he put together. And then he lit up the major cities. And you could see the city formation as he went through time of how they located around the river system. And then, of course, the evolution of rail did something different, and cities start populating along the railroad tracks. And then the freeway system starts getting more developed. You start to have cities popping up with freeways. And so that has a lot to do with the formation of cities. So the next step we're going to do, and I'm just going to kind of foreshadow because we're going to cut class here in a sec, is to think about home production. So down south, one bread, one shirt was the backyard model. What if down south we get rid of the constant returns to scale, and if we make a bunch of shirts in one place, we can be more productive. And so this is the formation of factory production and how that's going to alter our numbers. That'll be the next step in our journey of kind of building up exchange. Okay, let's call it a day there.
Would you send those to, like, the one that we had last class?
Yeah.
And then this one if you
Yeah, I might even just start posting them to Blackboard rather than
Okay.
sending. But I'll do one or the other. And
Are they all going to be up there at the?
yes, yeah, eventually. Each time I go through them, yes.